Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our Mimecast webinar around how to de-risk your move to Office 365. So today we've got Robert Sadlak from Mimecast and Helen Murphy here from Bytes Software Services who will be going through the webinar today.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Helen Murphy, and I'm the Relationship Manager for Mimecast here at Bytes. So as well as highlighting the points on this slide, I just wanted to explain the reason for today's webinar. Many of our customers are thinking of moving to Office 365, and some have already made the move. Mimecast and Bytes can provide all the services you need to help with your move, from ensuring a streamlined migration and 100% email uptime SLA. We can also assist you with migration services and importing any legacy on-premise archive into the cloud to free up your old storage. So don't hesitate to get in touch with your account manager or myself after the webinar if you'd like some more information on this. So Bytes have been a Mimecast partner for over 4 years now, and we have the highest level of partner status afforded to Mimecast partners based on our revenue, customer base, and our sales and expertise technically. And we actually use the Mimecast service ourselves, which works really well with our hybrid Exchange on-prem and Office 365 environment. We have some very happy Mimecast customers across all verticals, including the legal, insurance sector, manufacturing, public sector, retail, and many more. So I'll now pass over to Rob from Mimecast. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you may have at the end, and thanks again for joining.
The objective of the presentation is to get a little bit of an idea of some of the potential risks, potential limitations, potential things that are required to think about when going to Office 365. We have been thinking quite a lot about some of those things, as well as working with Microsoft to understand what are their plans, what they see as weaknesses within the platform. Don't get us wrong, the platform is really good. But there are certain things, as we will see, as we will investigate, and as we will explore, that, as with any platform, could use some improvements. So that is going to be the main objective of the presentation today, as well as understanding how Mimecast can help with that. So my name is Robert Sadlak, and I am a solutions architect here at Mimecast, having worked here for quite a while now, and understanding very well what is it that we can offer. And if you do have questions on deployment scenarios, on more exact migration situations, we may take that during the Q&A session, or potentially offline if it takes too long to discuss it. But please do feel free to ask questions at the end. It is really we think essential to ask those things. A dumb question is a question that's not asked, as some people say. So next slide. Before we can begin, let's just explain a little bit who we are, and more importantly, what do we see when it comes to Office 365. Mimecast as an organization has been a cloud-focused, email-focused organization that's existed for over 10 years now, and we have quite a lot of expertise when it comes to cloud services, therefore. And our evolution when it comes to Office 365 is first and foremost to help migrate anybody who is in an on-premise environment to Office 365, ensure smooth migrations, but also ensure maybe setups that are a little bit more exotic. Bytes was mentioning, for example, their hybrid setup of Office 365 with a little bit of on-premise Exchange as well. That's something that we support. Or maybe you're thinking about doing a full migration from 2007 to Office 365 and need to ensure that full level of availability. This is something that we have quite a bit of experience with. Our aim is also to reduce that complexity that is associated with such migrations. Another aspect that we aim to solve is related to security governance, risk, and compliance. This is something that is more and more important every day and will evolve as we tend to go into the cloud infrastructure realm. And therefore, being able to ensure that all of the gaps when it comes to compliance, when it comes to security, are filled out. And we will investigate that as well during the presentation. The final part is more to do with our direction, our goal, our objective as an organization, and it is for you as a potential customer or a customer to quote-unquote bank your corporate memory with us. As an organization, a lot of information passes through emails and other data streams, and we would like to transform our platform into a location where your corporate memory is not a stale archive where everything that's kept there is just kept for archiving purposes and it's never accessed again, but more something where you can develop that data and use that data, reuse that data again and again and again. So you'll hear us say quite frequently the company motto of a safer, more useful place for your human-generated corporate information. And that is something that we truly believe in. Our orientation when it comes to Office 365 is absolutely clear. From our 10,000 plus customers, over 5% are already using Office 365 in conjunction with Mimecast. And one of our objectives for this financial year is to have up to 500,000 users worldwide running Mimecast and Office 365. 500,000 users in total, not 500,000 customers. It's a little different. So that is actually one of the company goals for this year, and we truly believe it. The other thing that we believe, the other thing that we've accepted, and the other thing that is key to our success is accepting the fact that all of our customers will move to Office 365. And therefore, we need to adapt to that and be able to orient our solutions to meet that future state. And what you'll see over here today are very specific products for very specific needs associated with Office 365. Now, to start off with, where are all of the eggs? So one of the great things about Office 365 is that it does a lot of really good things, and it does it pretty well. And the package looks great too. And that is without doubt, without question. However, what does occur as a question is, where are you putting all of those eggs into the proverbial single basket? That means that that basket becomes, in some senses, potentially a bottleneck, potentially a limitation, potentially somewhere that is a single point of failure, and potentially a barrier for evolving the business when required. So just a couple of things to consider when you decide to move to Office 365. What are the things that you will potentially miss out? And these are things that even Microsoft themselves admit. For example, backup of data. Your DR strategy, your backup strategy, your verification on data integrity is completely lost. Some might say that is not a bad thing. But in other aspects, when it comes to integrity of data and being able to reference data that might have been removed incorrectly or deleted by mistake, which is more frequently the case than by a malicious intent, Microsoft is not necessarily going to tell you, here are the backups, we're going to be doing a backup for you or for that mailbox. It's not really going to happen. And they admit it. A second part is related to business continuity planning. That's, again, is some people are happy with the 99.99% SLAs that are on offer. However, any good IT manager who is capable of convincing their CIO in a statement, when the mail server goes down, we can't do anything and there's nothing you can do, is that acceptable? The likelihood of being acceptable becomes pretty slim the higher up you go within the organization. And that's something, that is a question to ask yourself. Is that okay? A third piece is related to security. And sure, a couple of years ago, associating Microsoft and security was almost a joke. That has significantly changed for the better, and we are all happy about that. However, a large portion of the security piece is based around EOP, so therefore forefront technology, which in itself is not bad, but most people used to not use or not bother with forefront to begin with in the past. That's not really going to change much into the future. So again, it's having to balance out, is your experience with forefront in the past, that's what you're going to get? Is that what you are planning to use moving forward? And is that something that you're planning to accept when it comes to the limitations of it not necessarily being constantly developed? A fourth part is compliance and governance options. So Microsoft does have quite a hefty compliance stack in place with Office 365. It does have DLP functionality if you get the right package. It does have legal hold functionalities. It does have archiving functionalities. However, archiving functionalities when it comes to Office 365 is more of the case of a PST in the cloud. PST in the sky is the easiest analogy that you can use for that. And same goes with regards to governance and compliance on emails. The statement for that, the thing to cover that is actually journaling. And Microsoft is clear about their journaling functionality. If you want to journal emails, you have to store it somewhere else. We will not store journaled emails within Office 365. And they're pretty clear with that statement on their TechNet environment. So and open about it. And finally, the legal hold. It's good that they have it, but if you can only, the limitations on legal hold is that you only usually apply a legal hold when you are aware that something has to be held. However, if you don't have a compliant archive, people can delete whatever they want. If you apply a legal hold on something that has already been deleted ages ago, the usefulness becomes a little bit reduced. Final point is regarding to the migration and the transition, the move. You may be using a on-premise Exchange environment. Maybe you might be using PST files. You might be using an email archiving solution and needing to transition quite a hefty amount of data from one environment to the other. Therefore, you are going to be doing it in a staged format, and you'd want to ensure that during the migration of data, people can still get work done. Or you'll have to spend quite a number of weekends and late nights, which is not always the most effective way of doing that. And therefore, having a way to ensure application of policies, availability of emails across multiple environments during such migrations can be quite useful to alleviate the pain associated with that. So when it comes down to it, it's all about potentially having some kind of multi-vendor resilience, something that can help reduce any kind of issues that would occur during the migration, once the migration is completed, once you're running that environment, increase the security, increase the resilience, but also, in some ways, increase the functionality. And Office 365 is a great fundamental layer to that, and offers quite a large number to this. However, from I'm sure your experiences using mail environments, Exchange in particular, you might have noticed that you do have multiple solutions that tend to plug in certain gaps. And this is where we truly believe that, in particular with cloud solutions, you can still kind of do that without being restrained to some of the functionalities on the base. And we believe that a dual vendor selection can really cover the ongoing needs, as we will see, but also future needs that you'll have after set migrations. So let's take a look at some of those elements that we aim to plug in. So what is important to note about our Office 365 product suite is that they've all been based on the Mimecast technologies that we have used for on-premise environments, tweaked to specifically meet Office 365 needs. What's important about this platform is that everything works together in a seamless fashion. It's one of the benefits of being able to develop your platform yourself. We never bought anybody. We never plugged in anything from outside. We built everything in-house with our dev team. That means maximum level of control as well as maximum level of flexibility. This is something that is unique when it comes to most cloud vendors. Some of the cloud vendors that can do that are organizations such as Microsoft, Google, us, Amazon maybe at a certain extent. These are platforms that they have built themselves, and we are up there as well with that league. Another thing to be aware of with regards to the suite is that everything is a module. So you can decide and pick and mix whatever you want. It is not a all of it, all or nothing. It is literally, I pick what I need for my business problems. And each one of those specific functionalities has upgrades and options that are available with very specific roadmap and very specific use cases, as we will see. So let's get into it. The first product in this list is related to high availability. So high availability for the email gateway for Office 365. And it's no coincidence that this is something, this is one of the first elements over here. I'm sure that any one of you who has been paying attention to Office 365 news lately was aware of the 9-hour outage that occurred recently, about 2-3 weeks ago. And it is a reality. That is not a if it happens, what do I do, but when it happens, what will I do? And our objective is to not only make sure that you will not lose emails in such scenarios, but also potentially ensure that your end users are capable of still sending and receiving emails if required. It might not be for everybody. You might require continuity requirements for a certain batch of users on Office 365, whereas another set of users may not require it. Or maybe you just need that extra level of protection when it comes to being able to not lose emails, spool all of the emails in case of a continuity event. There's quite a lot of options when it is associated with that. And the setup, when it comes to it, is very straightforward. You can have your MX record pointing to us. You can have your MX record pointing to Microsoft. If there's, or you can have it, pointing either to Microsoft, either to us. If you're pointing to us, we become the first point of entry, last point of exit. If you point to Microsoft, we become just a contingency plan where you change your MX records to us where required, and we will spool the emails for you, keep the emails for you, or maybe act as that temporary email gateway for you in such continuity events. So there's quite a number of setup scenarios that we can deal with. Now, why might this be useful to you? Or more importantly, if this is this useful to you is the question. And you may want to think about a couple of things in order to decide that. And the first thing is, what is the hourly or potentially daily cost of an email outage for your business? And some people say that it's fine to have 99.99% SLA on availability. And even on that part, Microsoft is not entirely it's not entirely certain if that includes or does not include planned downtime. I was under the impression it doesn't include planned downtime. Other people are telling me that it does include planned downtime on that too. And that's a question to ask yourself as well. What is the real SLA? If something happens, what do I do? And as I was mentioning earlier, it's not a if it happens, it's when it happens. And in such circumstances, do you consider it okay to not have a business continuity plan? Can you safely say that to CIOs, to finance directors, to people higher up running the business at the top level? Is that okay? I doubt it, but I have encountered people who say yes, it is okay. So that is an absolutely important fundamental question to ask when required. And at the end of the day, planning for the unknown, as stated over here, is not necessarily Microsoft's problem. They do state what their SLAs are, even though it's still a little bit jumbled, as I mentioned. But at the end of the day, if something happens, when it happens, it is going to become not just Microsoft's problem, but also yours. The next product to consider when it comes to Office 365 and Mimecast is related to another very fundamental issue, which is journal archiving services. And this is something that we see a lot of people from who are moving from Exchange to Office 365 using quite a lot. This might be because they have certain governance requirements, certain internal compliance requirements, and require, therefore, to store all inbound, outbound internal emails for a set period of time. That set period of time could be 99 years, could be 10 years. It really depends on your needs. And as I mentioned earlier, Microsoft are pretty straightforward about this. It is literally black on white. Journaling data cannot reside within Microsoft. End of story. So you have to find another location, another place to store this data, which could be a lot of information to manage if you maybe send it back locally to deal with. So if you've decided to go down the Microsoft route for this, it might make sense to go down the another cloud solution for this as well. It's not just about journaling the data for compliance and e-discovery purposes. It's also being able to have the relevant interfaces for it, the relevant searchability aspects for it, as well as the potential to act as that verification of the data. All information that we store gets hash values associated with them for integrity purposes. We also can do mailbox synchronization to help eventually for mailbox recovery. This is something that we are planning to finalize towards the end of this year, the possibility of reconstituting a mailbox from scratch in situations where people delete data by mistake or on purpose. And we will be able to offer that recovery functionality with the data provided to the Journal Archive. Again, there are certain things to consider, and ask yourself if the extra features such as mailbox recovery or recovery of redundant email information, or just journaling in general, is something to be aware of or to be keen on. There are multiple ways to lose data, as mentioned here. Not only configuration errors. I mean, it is a cloud solution, but it's still based a lot on Exchange, and Exchange mistakes can happen. Same thing over here. Malicious intent is another situation, but more likely the case is non-malicious actions, mistakes, accidents, corruption, user error, or just misplaced data. And in those kind of situations, having a second location to just have that sanity check in place can really be useful. There is also, as part of it, a relevance to disaster recovery planning in case of any incidents that are going on. The data recovery assurance, as mentioned, with regards to backups. And just also peace of mind when it comes to where your data is stored and located. Being able to have duplicates of this information does allow you to be a lot more agile in situations where you may move to Office 365 and then ask yourself, well, it was a good experiment, but I think I'm going to go back to on-prem Exchange. If that has happened in a couple of cases, and if that does occur, you may want to, you may be happy to have a secondary location for that data. The third product is associated with the archive of the emails, and this is more associated with legacy archive. You've made a decision, you've decided to go down that road, so in such a situation, you need to be able to decide, so am I going to upload all of that data to Office 365 and start with the same structure? That's about 3 terabytes of data. That's going to be a little bit interesting when transferring those mailboxes. Or do I have all of this legacy PST files or data from an enterprise vault that I don't really want to transmit to Microsoft for whatever reason, more likely a technical reason or time reason. Maybe I want to still store this archived information for posterity or for compliance reasons, or just maybe make the migration easier by having new mailboxes to start off on the other side. And this is really what the legacy data hosting is all about. So we can store your old information and act as a static archive where we'll just be storing the data for you. You might not want to use journaling, for example, and just store old information. That is something that we can do. We would have to go through a project of extracting the data. That could be a project either managed by yourselves or a project managed through our professional services team via third-party tools. And we could connect to those to Enterprise Vault or to a old Xantas setup, or maybe to Exchange, if you have large Exchange mailboxes, or maybe just a network location where you have large amounts of PST files, or maybe PST files across the business. If that's something that you would like to do to make that migration process afterwards to Office 365 a lot more simplified, that we can absolutely help out with that. And this covers, again, some of the areas that was mentioned with the journaling part. Again, the legacy aspect is tightly knit with the journaling. There are 2 separate elements that can be bought separately, that can be used separately, but from a usage point of view, there's a lot of elements that go together. Again, the disaster recovery piece is absolutely key, as well as the compliance piece, and the independent migration pivot, as I mentioned earlier as well. But it also goes hand in hand with that concept I mentioned at the beginning, which is the corporate memory. So one of our fundamental goals is to make stale data useful again, and we have multiple end-user facing tools for that on mobile apps, as well as integration within Windows Explorer, which is coming out pretty soon, and as well as analytics to analyze the data and to allow people to make some pretty clever decisions. I call it the email equivalent of walking down a corridor, over-listening a conversation about something that you are interested in, and then joining into that conversation. That is probably the easiest analogy that I can provide, and a technology such as this one, where data becomes useful again, where you can be associated with people that are related to a project that you are working with automatically, rather than having to search for them, can be quite interesting. I'm thinking about a typical example where us, for example, in the pre-sales, we have pre-sales across the world. I might be working on a particular type of document, sending it over to my colleagues here in the UK, but my colleagues in the US might have been working on a similar type of document. I could be put in touch with them due to analytics working in the background. So things like that are what the corporate memory we see as vast potential for businesses. And being able to store the data for you and leverage it, we would be able to do that. One of the final products that I'll be covering today is broad spectrum email security. Yes, it is a little bit of a mouthful, but it covers being a extra layer of security. And as we all know, anybody who's done any kind of formal information security training would know about the concept of multi-layer defense mechanisms, using multiple layers of defense for protecting the soft core of data. And yes, Microsoft does have EOP, absolutely. No, our goal is not necessarily to be a redundant layer on that. Our goal is to really be able to add a benefit to this. In particular, one of our real big focuses over the year has been on targeted threats. So you may be aware of very finely crafted, very specifically crafted emails designed for people to click on the links, to go to particularly crafted web pages that would either be used for phishing purposes. So you'd enter some credentials, some data information about you yourself, compromising yourself in that particular way, or also for leveraging zero-hour risks on browsers, another typical scenario. And this is not something that is just associated with your Outlook. This could be something that is that can be attacked, that can have as attack vectors mobile devices and tablets as well, which is more and more the tool of choice for many people. Even Microsoft are focusing a lot on iOS these days with their new iOS apps from a couple of months back. So it is something that's happening within the business. And if you take a look at some of the interesting attack vectors that are used, iOS's default web browser, Safari, tends to be quite vulnerable if people go to finely crafted websites that leverage certain vulnerabilities there. And you can easily search online for some of these things. Hackathons in particular, they tend to do that, where you hack a computer or a device based, and if you manage to do that, you win the device. Lots of iPhones have been won in that particular way, as well as Android devices and Windows phones. And you may ask yourself, does it matter? Well, sure, if you're using a web filter internally, you may think to yourself that it's not particularly relevant because there's a redundancy in place over there. It's redundant. However, reality, as I mentioned, is a little bit different, and people work outside of the business more and more, and therefore web filters for such finely crafted URLs within emails are less likely to be useful, in particular if it's happening on a mobile device. So this is what we meant by being that extra security layer. It's not aiming to be doing the same type of services as what Microsoft does with EOP. It's really adding to some of those functionalities. And information security is, as unfortunately stated here, an arms race, and there's no first, second, or third prize when it comes to who's the most efficient. The only way to be efficient is to have multiple layers of defense. Now, every single product that I've mentioned today at this point are standalone products. These are products that are specifically designed for very specific Office 365 elements. And you, as mentioned earlier, ask yourself the question, is this something of importance to me? And then decide if that particular module is relevant. Or, and we would like to, hope so, you may decide that all of those elements are relevant, and you can have a unified platform or unified risk mitigation, as the module is called, which incorporates all of these elements put together with a preferential pricing when it comes to the bundles associated here. And every single element that I've discussed are covered by this risk mitigation for Office 365. But that is the main top-level bundle. There are other things that you may want to consider when it comes to Office 365. And we like to call them a special needs product because they are for very particular Office 365 use cases. And again, the whole platform, the same platform that is used for what I've just showcased, is also used for these special use cases too. One of those use cases is Federated Enterprise Services. So Federated Enterprise Services is for setups where you want to be doing hybrid Office 365 implementations. So where you are using Office 365 in conjunction with an on-premise Exchange environment, but also you may be, as an organization, an international organization with potentially wanting to have multiple Office 365 accounts. You may want to have one in the US, one here in Europe, maybe another one in Asia, or maybe you want to do it based on particular business units, have their own Office 365 implementation and management of things, keep them segregated, which in some ways does make sense. You may want to do that. So the diagram over here nicely explains this type of potential setup. But out of the box, how are you going to be how are you going to be ensuring that A, you have uniform application of the policies, B, you have the correct email data forwarded to the correct Office 365 location? That might be a little bit more difficult. So what the Federated Services element allows you to do is that support for hierarchical setups, unified top-level interface of applying rules and policies, as well as archive isolation if you need to have Chinese walls in place. We see this as more appropriate for certain sized organizations, certain international organizations. However, hybrid setups are absolutely covered by this type of scenario as well. Another very specific use case type product, which might be actually relevant to everybody on the line today, and that is the large file sending for Office 365, which can be either integrated with the platform, where you'd be getting things such as DLP application on this, and you'll see what I mean in a second, or as a standalone tool where you just use the LFS. And this mechanism is basically designed to integrate with your email system on the desktop, specifically Outlook, and solve this problem of the compliant and discoverable data for your users. What do I mean by that? Office 365 has a 25 meg limit on inbound and outbound emails. It's a hard limit. It's not likely to change anytime soon. The recipient on the other side may have a harder limit when it comes to that. Remember, default exchange limits tended to be 10 megabytes for quite a while, only 2013, recently upped it to 25. But likelihood is it's still going to stick to around the 10 region. So, in such situations, you may want to go down the Microsoft route, use OneDrive, or maybe the box.net, which has recently just come on the news that they're doing some pretty hefty integration with Office 365. Or maybe Dropbox. Maybe use a corporate Dropbox account for sharing large data with third parties. But one of the little problems when it comes to doing these kind of things is that there's no governance. There's no traceability. There's a lack of responsibility or being able to show that who's responsible for something something that shouldn't have been shared, or something that was shared that should have actually been controlled at first glance. And this is what the large file sending functionality of Mimecast is for. It's been designed to allow data that is shared to be done via Outlook without impacting SMTP, but also applying DLP rules to ensure that end-user behavior when it comes to sharing large content doesn't change from when sharing normal email attachments. But more importantly, allowing an IT-controlled and business-controlled way of sharing that data. I think that is the fundamental key difference between the large file sending mechanism that we have and other similarly aimed solution. And by the way, it's not large file sending as in one way from you to a third party. It could also be receiving from third party to back to you as well. It's a two-way process. It should be more large file sharing than large file send only. Now all of these, again, work in a single platform as well as modular and pluggable. We really believe in this whole Chinese menu approach to these modules, because every organization has different business needs. They have different requirements. They have some focus on the compliance part, so the compliance pieces that are mentioned over here are relevant. Others think that security is ultra important, and maybe the security piece is important. Or maybe what you got out from today that's most interesting is the large file sharing. And in that case, we can definitely cater for that. What we believe strongly, however, is that if you decide to make a strategic decision to go to Office 365, to use Mimecast alongside it as well. And really, to have it in this particular way. The great basket that is Office 365, being your primary decision when it comes to cloud services for emails, and using Mimecast as that secondary basket, just in case when things are required for extra business functionalities and future business functionalities as well. All right. At this point, I have finish with my side of the presentation. Here's my email address. If you have questions, feel free to send either to our partner Bytes. Thank you very much for organizing the presentation today, but we can also do it in this particular way too. So I believe Sarah and Helen have taken over control, who are back on the audio and ready to take any questions that you may have.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for that, Rob. So we've just got a couple of questions so far, but please, if you have any questions, just pop them in the box and we can ask Rob. So one question, what is the worst downtime you have had with on-premise to 365 migrations?
Okay, so one of the cool ways of doing the migration, which quite a number of people have used, was in coordination with our continuity module. So the continuity module, what it allows you to do, if you're using Outlook, for example, if you're using, we have a plugin for Outlook that will be made aware of when the communication between Outlook and Exchange is down. And it may be down for legitimate reasons, such as doing a migration, or illegitimate reasons, such as being the mail server is down. And what can happen is that during that down period for X amount of users, where X users are the ones that you're moving their mailboxes, they could still be sending and receiving emails as normal within their Outlook. But what's happening in the background, you're moving their mailboxes, but also one of the cool things that we can do is delivery routing based on rules. So one of the rules you can say is that anybody in group A are users that are still on-premise. Anybody in group B are users that are now on Office 365. And we keep this AD sync up to date. We can do it based on user groups from AD, or maybe based even on Active Directory attributes. That MS Exchange home may change when you're moving one mailbox from one location to the other. So we're capable of ensuring pretty much near zero, or at least a couple of moments of downtime for such situations. The beauty of this is that there's no loss of emails during such situations. You will always have those emails available, either from an end user point of view, using either the Outlook plugin or the web portal that we offer, or just if you're doing it out of office hours and to just want to make sure that everything is spooled correctly and that there's just no loss of emails.
Great, thanks, Rob. And just another one now from Mohammed. Where and how many data centers do you have that replicate copies of the data for HA and DR? And how do you deal with the varying data security governance compliance when data is stored outside of the UK?
Okay. So first thing about Mimecast data centers. Mimecast data centers are regionally siloed. So we do have data centers here in the UK, in the US, 2 pairs, in South Africa, offshore, as well as one popping up in Australia anytime soon. And one of the fundamental design philosophies of these data centers was to be regionally siloed. Therefore, our European data centers, which is actually based here in the UK, is regionally siloed to the UK. It is not physically possible for data to be replicated such as the same way that we have between those data centers to other data centers. So that's the first part. The second part, each setup, each grid consists of 2 data centers, where across the 2 data centers, the data is kept in triplicate. So there will always be 3 copies of a customer's data across the 2 data centers. Customer's data is encrypted using 256-bit AES, and we ensure also, and we are the ones who manage those keys. Furthermore, it's not just technological security that is key, but it's also processes that are important. An example of where process is important, if you use strong passwords and then decide to keep a post-it note of that password on your screen, it's not going to be particularly useful. So our processes in all around ISO 27001 compliance. And what's important to note about that ISO accreditation is that it is not just based on our data center. It's not against our data centers only. It's also against our development team. It's also against our sales team. It's also against our support team. It's across the whole business. The whole business goes through this accreditation, which means every 6 months we do get audited. We do get constant reminders for our regarding our security processes. We get pen tested at least 4 or 5 times a year by different pen testing teams as well. So we try to be as paranoid as possible. We do try to keep up to breadth with all of the security standards that are out there. Namely, at this moment here in the UK, with some of for government type organizations, with the new IL changes, with the IL 1, 2, and 3 now instead of the whole 7 layers. We're working on getting that IL 2 accreditation, which was pretty much the equivalent of IL 2, IL 3 in the old system. For anybody that is interested with going down the route with us and has operations in the U.S. that needs to have compliance with the with FINRA over there, we're working on getting the sampling functionalities that will help you with those as well. It's ever evolving, ever changing, and we do listen to our customers. And the reason why we're capable of doing this is because it's a platform that we manage ourselves. We never bought anybody. We didn't go down the Frankenstein route of getting different solutions and kind of jumble it all together. And therefore, it means that we're agile when the business needs arise.
Great, thanks, Rob. And this is quite a long question, so bear with me.
Not a problem.
If the MX record is pointed to Mimecast, then if Mimecast undergoes any downtime, then this would be downtime for emails irrespective of Office 365 staying online.
Yep.
If that's the case, 1, have you had any downtime so far? 2, what is your current SLA? And 3, does your system upgrades have any impact on your system uptime?
Okay, very good question. Very, very good question. Did we have any downtime? Yes, we've had during the 11 years that we have been operating. So we've been operating since 2003. The longest downtime that we've had, which is also the only downtime that we've had, was 3 hours last year in May. Longest 3 hours of our lives. So we are completely honest, brutally honest about it. We have a very in-depth documentation explaining what happened and what we have done in order to mitigate this and to ensure that it does not happen again. That's the first thing. The second thing, what is our SLAs? Well, you'd be surprised to hear that our SLA guarantees are 100%. And you might ask yourself, well, Robert, you just stated that you had a downtime and you're still saying you want to give 100% financially backed SLAs? Yes, we do. And the reason why we want to do that is because we don't believe in 99.998 and then keeping tabs on that to quite a breadth. We don't believe in that. We believe 100% is what we aim for, it's what people expect, it's what people want, and that is what we will strive for. Therefore, we have had to ensure that we have a platform in place that is robust enough to avoid those downtimes. So, first thing, the data centers, the pair, are both running at 40% capacity, so that if one goes down, we are capable of jumping to the other and meeting the expected increase in capacity. first thing. Second thing, the development of the platform was designed to cater the upgrades on the spot. And we have gone in particular over the last 3 years through an extensive upgrade exercise of code. A lot of code was cleaned up, eliminated, rewritten to be more effective. I mean, some of the code from our CTO, who is who founded the company with our CEO all those years ago, was still running up to a few years ago, because a lot of it was based on he wrote the MTA, the basics of the storage grid, all of those things. And we've gone through an exercise of upgrading that, and we have ensured that the systems are capable of being upgraded on the fly with no downtime associated with that. Now the final question, now a final part which I'm going to add is, as I mentioned multiple times, it's not if, is when. So we take that same type of philosophy with Mimecast. It's not if, it's when. We hope that when it happens will be never, but you have to be realistic about it, and we do put our hand up and say, it will happen. What will you do? Well, our philosophy when it comes to that is we do, if something like when that happens, please make sure that when you're pointing the MX record to us, use the lowest type of time to live on the MX record. So 10 or 15 minutes, to ensure that if there is a problem with us, when it comes to redirecting the mail flow back to Office 365 entirely, rather than using us as a first in, last out solution, the time to live of 15 minutes would mean that going back to Office 365, pivoting over there, can be done relatively quickly, and you can meet potential controlled downtime aspects in a way that will not be too negative on everybody. So we do make certain recommendations for this, but we try to mitigate this as much as possible, and it's therefore that's why I'm saying it's a very good question to ask.
Great, thank you. I think we've just got time for one more. Is your costing based on amount of storage being used?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is a question that is a situation that has recently changed. So before, the situation was that that we didn't have a storage cost model, so it was based on the number of active users within your organization. Physical bums on seats, basically. That has slightly changed. In what sense has it changed? So it's changed with regards to the legacy data archive. So any old emails before activating the journaling within your Office 365 platform. So in order to get that data, there used to be an ingestion cost, which was a one-off cost which had a largish value associated with them. And that's usually the same with most cloud organizations when it comes to ingestions, large one-off cost, which is not always to the likes of everybody. Capital expenditure of that type is not usually easy to accept. Therefore, we've changed the model slightly, that for any legacy data, so that will be any email data that you provide to us via PST, so any data prior to enabling the journaling functionality on Office 365, there will be a storage cost specifically for that data. So if you say you have 2 terabytes of data of PST file, you upload those 2 terabytes. For those specific 2 terabytes, there will be a cost per terabyte associated with that. Moving forward, any data added on top of that due to the journaling, that is based on the per active user licensing that I mentioned earlier. So that's something that has changed this month with the official release of our Office 365 offering.
Wonderful. Thanks ever so much, Rob. So Yeah, that's it. That's all of our questions. Thanks everyone for joining. And please do leave feedback, so we will get in touch if you have any further questions, and we'll send out the recording shortly. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.